Welcome back to the Tapes Archive podcast, where we release interviews that have never been heard before. In this episode, we have the Reverend Alex Van Halen. At the time of this interview in 1995, Alex was 42 years old and was promoting an upcoming Van Halen concert in British Columbia, Canada. In the interview, Alex talks about growing up and playing with his brother Eddie Van Halen, for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge producer Bruce Fairbairn, and the best thing about being in Van Halen. The interview is conducted by a new Tape Archive contributor, Canadian music journalist and author Steve Newton. During his 4 decades as a freelance music writer, he has interviewed everyone from AC/DC to ZZ Top. We highly recommend that you head over to his Patreon page, link in the description, and check out over 400 of his exclusive interviews. For only $5, you get full access. We are not paid for this endorsement. We just truly feel it's money well spent. For zero money, you can head over to Newton's website, earofnewt.com, where he has posted more than 3,000 of his interviews, album reviews, concert reviews, and horror movie reviews. A big thanks to Steve Newton for allowing us to share this very rare interview with you. Thanks for tuning in, and now it's time to open the vault.
Hello, may I speak to Steve, please?
Yeah, that's me.
Steve, this is Alex.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Boston.
Oh, you playing there tonight?
Yeah?
Excellent.
Played here last night, and figured we do too.
All right. Yeah, I've been a fan of the band since day one, so it's nice to be able to finally have an interview.
Great.
I'd like to start a little bit in the early days, Alex, and work up to the present day and the new album. First off, I was wondering what your earliest memories of playing with your brother Eddie are. Were you guys really young when you started jamming? Or?
Yeah, I think music is one of those things that it's in your blood. I think even before we played an instrument, we were drawn to the marches that my dad was in the Air Force Band. He would bring the records home. Part of the reason he was in the Air Force Band is because he was a jazz player and he couldn't find work in Holland. We lived in Holland and there was no place to find work. The big band era was over and small jazz bands just couldn't make a living to support a family of 4. He went into the Air Force and joined the Air Force Band to bring home those records. And Ed and I would sit there and march around the table just for hours on end, and you kind of realize that music can be hypnotic. It can do all kinds of things to you. It can change your perspective on time and all that. That's how I think. That's what I can remember. We started playing piano when we were 6 years old, and the idea was, I think my mom had this crazy idea that we should be concert pianists. So we did that for about 10 years. And of course, in between, by the time I was about 11, I picked up the guitar, and Ed had a drum set. And after about a week or 2, we decided to change. I didn't care for the guitar, and Ed didn't care for the drums. So that was that.
Yeah. After the military, what sort of bands did you guys first try to emulate?
The first one was bands like the Ventures, anything that was like you could play with guitar and drums. Didn't have a bass player at the time. We kind of be a novelty act. My dad he would play clubs, and we would just be kind of like a half-an-hour intermission. It was great.
Who were your personal drum gods back then?
I really latched on to Ginger Baker. And, of course, I think I'm having a brain fart. John Bonham, Keith Moon. I was really into stylistic people who had a unique style that you could hear no matter what they did, is you could instantly recognize the way they played. Of course, technique was always important, but I preferred Louis Bellson to Buddy Rich. That was my personal preference. I preferred Philly Joe Jones to some of the other people. But, I think I always had an open mind. My dad used to tell me, you should listen to everybody, because you can always learn something. But my first, the one I really, whose style and the feel and how he fit in with the band, who I liked, was Ginger Baker. He made music on his drums, Up till then, I think drums were more or less just there to keep time, and it didn't really matter who the hell was back there.
Did you take any drum lessons yourself, or did you just start banging away?
I took a couple of lessons here and there, but I think for me it was just important to be in the middle of the energy of playing with music in front of people. By the time I was 13, I was playing full-time with my dad's jazz band in clubs around the LA area. And it taught me firsthand, the power of music. You see people coming in in a certain state of mind, and by the time the evening's over, everything's changed. I'm sure that the alcohol had something to do with it as well. But nonetheless, the whole atmosphere of being in a room and the energy level changing from one to another, it was very fascinating. And that to me is what music was all about. It's not just the hit songs and the production and all that stuff. It's really the essence of what music is about. It's really a one-on-one thing, because when you're playing for whether it's 10 people or whether you're playing for 1 million people, you're only playing for one person at a time. And that's I learned that early on.
Was Eddie part of your dad's jazz band?
Yeah, he came in from time to time. He played bass because the chord changes were too different from rock and roll, and Ed he was more into the rock and roll thing. But to make a few bucks, come on, Ed, play bass.
When did you first figure out that Eddie had the makings of a guitar legend?
It wasn't difficult. I had taken flamenco lessons and all that, and I could play, I could read and all that, but there was no connection between me and the instrument. To me, it was just a piece of wood with metal strings, and if you put your fingers on it this way, it makes this kind of sound, and if you put them this way, it makes this kind of a chord. But when Ed picked it up, just instantly, he just connected with it. It was as if it was meant to be there all along. Not only was he articulate and and there was feeling. It's something you have to sense when you're there, but I'm trying my best to describe it in words, but, a blind man could see it.
I still remember the first time I heard Van Halen when the first album came out. I was a child of the 70s. Did you guys expect to make such a huge impression on the rock and roll masses?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because while we were playing, the two gauges that you have to go by, whether what you do is any good, is the fact, number one, do you like it? Do you like it and are you proud of what you did? And number two, of course, it's easy, is do the people who you're playing this for like it? It doesn't take a genius either in that aspect. And we played 7 nights a week all over the LA club scene. And LA is, it's very spread out area. Los Angeles is not just the beach. It's not the California that people think it is. There are a lot of industrial areas. There are a lot of Hispanic areas. There's just all kinds of different places to play. And we would go within about a 100-mile radius of LA, play that area. That covers a lot of ground. So there was never a problem of finding a place to play. And we just found that no matter where we went, there were people who liked what we did. So we got to the point where we decided we should just promote our own shows. We would rent a building that would fit about 5,000 people, and out of our pocket we'd get some PAs and lighting, and we'd pack the place. And this was in lieu of trying to approach record companies and forcing a tape down their throat, because it rarely does that work. I've seen how many tapes these people receive, and it doesn't work. You're better off trying to win the lottery, And also, at that time, punk rock was huge, and record companies didn't want to have anything to do with the kind of music that we were making. We figured, well, if we just raise a stink our own way, and they can't help but notice. We were very lucky, that Ted Templeman and Mo Austin from Warner Brothers came in, and they saw us one night. We were playing at somewhere in Hollywood. The name of the club was the Starwood. It's not there anymore. We were playing there on the 99-cent beer night. It was a rainy Tuesday evening, and, you can get in and all the beer you can drink for 99 cents. And still, there were only like 15 people in the joint. Yeah, Hollywood was not our niche. But nonetheless, you're a musician, you play. It doesn't matter. You go for it. It happened to be that Mo Austin and Ted Templeman were there. From there on, as they say, the rest was history.
I was wondering what your favorite album of the David Lee Roth period was, if you had one from then.
I think all of them. I can tell you the least favorite one really was Dive It Down. And that's only because there started to be a lot of conflict within the band. Roth had one idea. He wanted to do cover songs because he wanted a hit single, and we wanted to play our music. Ed had so many songs that were just, were incredible. And I guess out of what you would call mutual respect, we decided, well, if that's really what you want to do, then we'll do that. But, you can't undo the past. It doesn't really matter. All I know is that we did what we felt was the right thing to do. We put in 110%. Ed wrote, Ed has always written the music. I don't dissect it into the Roth era and then the Sammy era. I really don't, because of the essence and the core and the heart of this band is still the same. And I think when Sammy joined it, it finally became complete, as opposed to being Roth and a band, or that's how he saw it anyway. But I think with Sammy, it finally became complete. So that, and it just, I can't describe what kind of energy there is when you have 4 people making music, even though everybody has a different way of doing things. When it all comes together, that everybody's happy with it. Anybody who's in the band knows that feeling. That's part of the reason why we do these things. You know?
Were you aware of Sammy Hagar ever since the debut Montrose album?
Oh, yeah, we used to play his stuff in the clubs.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Rock Candy, what was the other one? Make It Last. Oh, yeah.
It's a classic album, that one. And did you follow his solo career after he left?
No. We ran into a couple of times, when you do those summer stadium things where they have like 150 bands on. Yeah, we ran into Sammy once in a while. But, it's funny, it was before we went in the studio to record our first record, the powers that be, if you will, the people behind the scenes really wanted to have Sammy come in and sing with the band. But it didn't work out because Sammy already was established, and there was a business side to record companies, and I guess they felt, right, let's not take a shot on this thing because this Van Halen band hasn't been proven, and let's not fuck with it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I'm giving you a little dirt.
Thanks, man. I would say the band has evolved musically since Sammy joined, since 5150.
I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think the idea as a musician is you hope to grow, because if you don't, if you're always looking back and trying to repeat what you did, it just kind of becomes like a smaller and smaller circle, a smaller and smaller spiral. Before you know it, there's nothing left. I think, again, fortunately, there are 4 different people in the band, and we all have different tastes and different personas, and it shows through our instrument, and that always keeps it fresh. I mean, music is the way that we, as a band, interpret what's going on around us, whether it's musically and or lyrically. So the idea, let's face it, there is nothing new under the sun, really. If you want to stop and think about it, you're not going to reinvent an E chord. We're still using the same basic tools that everybody else does, which is 12 notes in the scale. That's counting all of them, then, So I've heard people say there's 8. Well, there's 12. One for each sign of the zodiac, something like that.
A lot of Vancouverites are probably wondering how you came to work with Vancouver's Bruce Fairbairn, Alex.
After we came back, after For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, because we're one of the few bands, I think, that actually do read fan mail. So many people have been asking for a live record. It took us a while to put a live record together, and to just make a long story short, it was about a 2.5-year tour from the release of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge until we came back in the studio. And we didn't want to make For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge Part 2. We were very concerned that if Andy was involved, that we would have that again. And besides that, Andy was busy. So, we don't want to produce ourselves. We were involved with it, but to take the actual helm, it's a big mistake. You need a 5th member of the band in that term, in that respect, because otherwise it would take forever. There's going to be nobody to make decisions in certain areas, because most of them are creative decisions. And in creativity, there is no right and wrong. There's just opinion. Well, I have an opinion, and if you want my opinion, I'll give it to you. That's, what I mean? The 4 of us are like that. Then you got 4 people sitting there beating the shit out of each other. And I'm kind of over-expressing it. So we talked about 5 or 6 different quote-unquote producers. I think it's important to keep in mind the term producer is kind of a vague. It can mean anywhere from a babysitter to a co-writer to a guy who plays almost all the instruments to psychiatrist. It's so vague, like I said.
How'd you pick Bruce?
Well, after talking about 5 or 6 different people, Bruce, when he first walked in the room, we didn't really discuss much of anything. One of the first things he asked is, well, let's hear the music. And he said, shit, what a novel idea. All these other people who came in had given us a list of their credits and and how they thought of the old records, and, oh, yeah, I love this song. Again, that's, in concept, you keep hammering on the old stuff, all you're going to do is repeat it. We don't want to repeat it, At least not on purpose, at least not consciously. So anyway, after Bruce said that, we said, well, shit, let's go. As it turned out, of course, the bottom line is you really have to go by instinct. You have to go by your heart. When people come to talk to you about wanting to produce the record, the reality of it is part a sales pitch. But there's something about Bruce that he's just a very warm human being. And of course, later on, we found out he's an incredible human being. Way beyond just his musical and production capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
He's an incredible guy.
Just about 3 more questions for you, Alex. I was wondering how much input you have personally in the writing of the tunes.
Well, that depends. Some songs are just little spurts of ideas that Ed just will throw out. See, we spend a lot of time just dicking around the studio, and some of the best times are when Ed isn't even thinking and he's just noodling around with it, and if I throw some kind of a drum thing to it, it just starts a fire, so to speak, that kind of spreads. But I don't actually consciously sit down with the guitar and say, okay, here, check this out, do this, do that, or, because I don't play guitar. The only song I ever did have was a keyboard tune called "Feels So Good." I had that little piece on the keyboard. But no, it's a chemistry and electricity that happens. One thing just fires up something else. There's a reason why certain people work well together and others don't. It's not for us. It's not a business. The reason you go in the studio is not to make a record. The reason is to go make music. And then while you're making it, it's going to be recorded. Hey, and then at the end, okay, then it's going to be put together in a record. Mm-hmm. You know, this may sound strange, but philosophically, it's a very different way of looking at it. That way, you're not sitting there going, well, we have 15 more days, we need 2 tunes, and then we have our record. You know, that to me is ridiculous. Of course, sometimes it can turn on you because For Unlawful Criminal Knowledge took a year to record. But that's just the way it was.
It's been almost two decades now for the band. I was wondering how much longer do you expect Van Halen to continue rocking?
Well, like I said, I ain't going to look back, so 2 decades really doesn't mean much to anything. Yeah, right. I know today we're going to play, and today we're going to play really good, because last night we played great, so we better play better than that tonight.
How old are you now, Alex?
Somewhere between 30 and 150. Just put it this way, I'm a hell of a lot younger than Mick.
Just to finish off, Alex, I'm just wondering, what's the best thing about being in Van Halen?
I think the people who we play for. I really do. We've said before that we're playing for 10,000 of our closest friends and all that, you know, but I think it's come to the point where it really is like that. We've done this thing with USA Harvest where we collect food. We ask the audience to bring some food. Our kudos go out to the audience because they're the ones who are doing it. We're just the catalyst. But so far, we've collected over 850,000 pounds of food. It just goes right back into the individual city. I think Ray might... Do you know Ray?
No.
Our manager?
No, I don't. No.
Oh, fellow Canadian.
Oh, really?
He manages Rush.
Oh, Rush, right. Yeah. Okay.
I think he's trying to do something... I don't know if the Harvest thing is in Canada, but anyway, it's one of those periphery things, you know, that had we not been in his position, we would have never been able to be part of it. And, you know, there is no who did this, who did that. The fact is, all the volunteers and all these people who make this project work are feeding people. We fed over 1.5 million people so far. Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you guys when you come out to Vancouver here on September 13th.
I'm looking forward to being there. And I hope it's sunny.
I think it will be.
You know, call the man upstairs and say, excuse me, but can you spare a sunny day on the...
Yeah. I'll see what I can do, Alex.
Okay.
I really appreciate you giving me a really good interview.
All right. What, did you go... I forgot I should have asked you. Was this on tape or are you just jotting this down?
No, I'm taping.
Oh.
I guess I should have let you know first, eh?
Well, I just
Sneaky guy.
I'm just fucking yakking away here, and then before you know it, you've got 2 notes.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It's going to be a good story. Thanks a lot, Alex.
Remember the name Scotty Roth, you know, and if you're going to come to the gig, just...
I'll be there for sure. I'm doing the review.
Okay, well, he'll set you up with whatever you need.
Scotty Ross, eh?
Yeah.
How do I get a hold of him?
How?
Yeah.
To production, to the building,
okay.
to,
all right.
you know, whatever. To just, if you happen to walk down the street anywhere near the facility and say, where's Scotty Ross, they'll help you.
Oh, thanks, Alex.
Yeah, he's everything.
Sounds good. Maybe get back and have a beer with you or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Alex.
All right.
Have a good gig tonight, and see you later.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Tapes Archive podcast. Please remember you can always find more information about the show and the individual episodes at our website, thetapesarchive.com. Until next time, the vault is closed.